Today we're in Eastern Cemetery, which is here in Louisville, Kentucky, and it is a different cemetery than the one I filmed in at the start of the Samhain series. It took me a while to find a spot here that was okay, that I received permission spiritually to film. There were quite a few places I was visually drawn to, but when I asked, can I make a video? Can I film there? I received some yeses and some nos. So I had to pay a lot of attention to that. And we're under a tree. It tends to be a certain type of person who's buried, usually women, single women alone, who are buried alone, that give permission. And so I see that as part of my job, to honor their stories, even though I didn't know them and can't tell you details about them the way I can tell you details about an ancestor that I actually had that was a direct lineage to me. This is still an honoring of their energy, their life, and we don't always know why Spirit has asked us to honor and stand in certain spots, film certain spots, discuss certain places. So many of you are not going to know Eastern Cemetery. It is, with all respect to the land and the people buried here, this is a difficult spot. There's even a smell to it that something's not quite right. It's a cemetery of great unrest, and what happened with Eastern Cemetery was a corruption, and graves were being sold and then resold, sometimes like 4 to 6 times. This wasn't discovered for many decades. I learned all of this from the resident cemetery expert when I was an anthropology major in college, which I majored in for a short period of time, and the forensics anthro professor was especially an expert on Eastern Cemetery. So he was frequently called upon to help with exhumations and moving as records got straightened out, and they'll never be totally straightened out. And for people who hold burial in high esteem, and that's the way they honor their dead, that's huge. And the people who died, who bought plots, and that was their wish for their aftercare in the afterlife, for their body, at least the physical self, that's also huge, and it's contributed to so much unrest. But he described and showed photos of equipment digging up bodies to put them in the correct spaces, and they would just inadvertently, in the beginning, before they knew what had happened with all of these reselling of plots, they would just crash straight through the remains of 5 and 6 skeletons, because they were buried on top of each other, literally, and just haphazard. So there's many parallels we can draw in Eastern Cemetery to life today, where everybody should be honored and respected, but there's so much going on that we, even if it's not true, we tend to lose our capacity to honor everybody, and we think we have a limited supply of honor. It's falsehood, but it's some powerful social conditioning that we only honor the people we know and like. So that brings me to a couple tidbits on what ancestor work is and what it isn't. Ancestor work is honoring our ancestors, and by doing so we honor ourselves and we honor being humans. And that doesn't mean that we love everything about being humans, and that doesn't mean we love everything about our ancestors. Ancestor work is not honoring our trauma, in that we condone it. We can honor the fact that it happened, and in this case, honor does not mean to hold in high esteem. Honor means I acknowledge. I acknowledge that I was a victim of abuse. I also acknowledge that was not okay. And the wind's really picking up around here. Just smells increasing. A lot of active activity in this cemetery. So I can honor it was not okay to sell and resell plots and be deceptive and deceitful and to dishonor people and their physical selves. That will never be all right. It was never all right that you went through bad treatment from anybody. It was never all right that you treated yourself badly. But it's not a cause for shame either. You didn't do anything wrong, per se. It's just how we're taught. We learn what the people around us are doing, and we make mistakes until we know better. So ancestor work is not saying, okay, I love everything that happened. I love my whole lineage. I love our past. I don't love my slave owner's past. It's aberrant. I don't love the past that persecuted women. I don't love the men who abused their wives. I don't love that aspect of them. I do love that I'm here and able to do better. I'm able to be of service, and I made it this far. To be alive and tap into the call of spirit. And in the end, that's who we're in service to. That's who the shaman is in service to, spirit, by way of serving the land and people. And it's a big process of trust, even if it doesn't matter what your spiritual path is or your religious path. There's a lot of trusting that there's a higher element out there, that you're not the entire universe. I'm not the entire universe. I'm not the entire world. Nothing revolves around me. But I can listen. And when I'm told to go do something, I can discern when that voice comes from spirit and when that voice used to come from my own will. That's a beautiful part of discernment. Ancestor work really helps with that, because we learn to listen. We learn to listen in a different way to those who came before us. And we find some unexpected gifts. I found out Shamanic Lineage. And someday I will go into that, but not yet. A person that was not so far removed from me, in fact, my grandmother on one side, genetically, carries Shamanic Lineage. And I had had nothing but disdain for this person and the way that I knew they lived their life. Even shamans can be sick and lost. There's a whole, amongst the population of, this is a tough one, okay, stay with me. Population of people who use substances, who misuse them, people who experience houselessness, homelessness. There's a high proportion of very powerful spiritual people who are lost. And I understand that state. And when you drive by people who might need some help, maybe you can help and maybe you can't. And maybe you don't know how to help. And maybe you tune into spirit and say, what can I'm not comfortable stopping. I don't have time. I don't actually have any money to give them, or resources or whatever it is. You can tune into spirit and ask, what can I do? I do that all the time because there's a lot of people needing help. And I'm out and about all the time. It's not a substitute for action. People need houses. People need food. We know this. But as I said in the video last night about lonely light workers, pity doesn't serve anybody. Honor and respect do serve. Honor and respect are noble gestures. That's what ancestor work calls us to do. We honor and respect ourselves, and that means we understand that we are the full package. Our ancestors were the full package, and we have some healed templates. Every single person, I get this question all the time when ancestor work comes up, every single one of y'all have a healed ancestor template. They're probably not the people that you hear about because they don't make the most exciting, crazy, oh my God, stories to pass down through the generations. I tapped into one last year around this time, and dang, she was far back in the lineage, but that was my healed female ancestor template. And she gave me her name, and it's actually a collection of sounds. It's not a name the way we're thinking of it now, but graveyards, especially during the day, are excellent places, if you're so inclined, to go and process ancestor work. It will really get you in the mood visually and make you think deeply and allow yourself to be tuned in. When you do this, you want to ground. You want to protect yourself. You want to be aware of any tendencies to energetically butt in, even on people after death. Not everybody's business is our business, okay? Just like in life, it's not your job to fix people. It's not your job to force anything upon them. It's not your job to give unsolicited advice, and that extends to the dead, and that extends to our ancestors as well. But when you get in a receptive space where you can listen, you can ask, what do my ancestors have for me today? And you don't even have to necessarily have ancestors buried in that cemetery that you're going to. I do suggest pleasant weather if you're new to this, because it's just too easy to get overwhelmed. If it's a gray, cold, you can get very triggered by things you didn't realize. And if you do get triggered, leave. Thank you. I can't do this right now. Leave. By being so close to the departed, even if they aren't directly from your line, in a way that we can conceive, you're still around the circle of life, and your morphogenetic field can open to accept things that are different from what you might accept ordinarily in a mall or an airport or your home. So explore this, take advantage of this time of the year. It's here for honor, it's here for love, and it's here for you to have a deep respect for yourself, what you've survived, and the places you're going. And I'm going to repeat, because I feel that somebody does need to hear this. What happened to you was not your fault. It doesn't matter who tried to make it into your fault, or who to this day is trying to make it into your fault. They have no actual power over you. You can succeed despite very messed up ancestors, living or dead. You can be that good ancestor. You can even be that healed ancestor template. There's a lot of people moving toward the healed ancestor template, and that's going to serve their entire family, their entire lineage, and their self, their soul, and their oversoul.